Good evening. It is time for today's Tax Talk. I'm your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. It is Thursday, February 2nd, the year of our Lord 2023. Going with what we talked about yesterday in the AI and the IRS. And now we're going to talk about digital privacy in the IRS. And that's an issue. Since the IRS can kind of grab whatever they want. But that's what we're going to talk to you about today. There's a great article, and won't you join us? Well, because I mentioned this yesterday. I saw that there was music going over the beginning of the show. Again, I gotta get a producer in here to produce for me because I make a lot of mistakes. But anyway, I did talk. I have a master's degree in information technology law, and a lot of that information technology is really about privacy and digital privacy. And so this is really an interest for me as technology, AI, IRS, taxes. These are all my interests. And so these converge on one another, and I can't overlook that. So here's a great article. So let's look at this article together. Here we go. Okay, so this is an article. An IRS that is above the law threatens taxpayers' security. Well, who could argue that? I don't think anybody could argue that. Is protecting the system more important than our constitutional rights? So far, I agree with that. I agree with the tone of this article. Congress recently gave the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service a chauffeur as part of the $1.7 trillion spending bill that nobody actually read. In another such bill, Congress required reporting of the individual's payments of as little as $600. The hypocrisy and the problem arise from the progressive era of reforms that centralized power in this federal government and created the income tax. We're going all the way back to the 16th Amendment. Worse, however, is the deep and serious inconsistency between the income tax and our nation's foundational protection of privacy, the Fourth Amendment. In tax investigations, the court essentially gave the IRS carte blanche to seize and search financial information without regard to constitutional limits. The modern era of digitalization has made this hugely consequential for our financial privacy, personal autonomy, and security. Ordinarily, when government agents seize or search our personal items and information, they mustn't violate our reasonable expectations of privacy or our property rights in ourselves, our houses, papers, and effects. Doing so requires a warrant. Yet the U.S. Supreme Court and federal appeals courts have over time written some real gems to explain away IRS seizures of financial information. In 1975, the Supreme Court dismissed the need for probable cause warrants in tax evasions under the Internal Revenue Code, writing, "The purpose of the statutes is not to accuse, but to inquire." Really? Although such investigations unquestionably involve some invasion of privacy, they are essential to our self-reporting system. A system that violates the Constitution is no system at all. The IRS is inquiring, and we have the system, so probable cause warrants go out the window. The most careful assessments of this IRS power took place during the 1969 case in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. It found that the effective operation of the revenue system requires that the commissioner be free to inspect taxpayers' records in order to ensure compliance with the revenue laws. Once again, a court effectively ruled that the system is more important than the people and its constitutional rights. The only way to challenge IRS seizures of personal financial data seems to be to show that the IRS is seeking to abuse the individual taxpayer. Sweeping changes in the last 2 or 3 decades make the rights that protect financial privacy vastly more important and more threatened than ever before. The digitalization of financial records makes it all easier to record, share, and process this personal information. It gives the government far greater power than paper records did, and there is a far greater risk of harm to taxpayers from potential breaches of the financial data and their exposure to criminal organizations and foreign governments. And we know that they are breaking into the IRS, or at least they're trying all the time, every day. And we know that the IRS records are not secure, given that all of those the richest Americans' tax returns were all compromised last year. They never did get to the bottom of who did it. Do they really care? I don't know. They don't seem to care because they haven't really done their investigations haven't come up with anything. So that's a problem. We emphasize these risks in a lawsuit I filed in New Hampshire with the support of the New Civil Liberties Alliance, arguing that the IRS's seizure of my personal financial information from a cryptocurrency exchange was contrary to the Fourth Amendment, my Fifth Amendment due process rights, and the standards set in the Internal Revenue Code. So now they have these sweeping, what they call John Doe subpoenas. I think we talked a little bit about them yesterday, where they can go in and into in this case is cryptocurrency exchange and say, we want the records for everybody that you do business with, because some of them are cheating. So we want to know about all of them. I personally don't think that that's right. Yet this is what passes now as privacy. Given the tradition of self-custody in the crypto world, which we all encourage, holding one's assets on one's personal devices rather than in banks. If information about my cryptocurrency activities ends up in the hands of criminals, it could expose me and my family to kidnapping, home invasion, and maybe worse. Due to the rise in Bitcoin's price, criminals could mistake transactions from a decade ago that were worth thousands of dollars for transactions worth hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars if they were made today. An IRS data breach could bring violent criminals to my door. The IRS's first response was to argue that the courts can't even consider my case. What the IRS wants, the IRS gets. But the First Circuit Court of Appeals batted down that argument. Taxpayers can at least have access to the courts. Currently, the IRS is arguing that I have no interest in my financial records, that the government can take them from anyone who has them, including a cryptocurrency exchange that makes standard contractual promises of privacy in its terms of service. The IRS says that the court granted carte blanche means I have no grounds to complain. Perhaps I'm unsympathetic as a plaintiff, but I am not part of the freewheeling crypto culture that produces debacles such as the collapse of the FTX. Many individuals, such as myself, have invested prudently, securing our family's financial futures, and we are mindful of our physical security. It would be one thing if the IRS saw me as a suspect, but the law doesn't even require suspicion. Aided by awful court precedent, the IRS believes that it gets to feed my information into a maw and place my data at risk without regard to our basic laws, and that is unconstitutional. I have to agree. So let's talk about this gentleman, because I assume it's a gentleman. I just want to know the guy's name. Should give him credit, right? By Jim Harper. Very good article, Mr. Harper. Here's another one from National Review today again. Will the IRS lose its $80 billion appropriation? I wanted to bring this article up because we did talk about this a couple of days ago, that Congress in the House of Representatives has brought up this bill, Daniel Pilla, about getting the $80 billion back. But it's not going to pass, and everybody knows it's not going to pass. I still think it's a good exercise. But here it is. The headlines may look good, but they don't tell the whole story. And what is certainly the shortest bill regarding federal revenue that I've ever seen come out of the House of Representatives, the House voted to rescind much of the $80 billion funding granted to the Internal Revenue Service by the Inflation Reduction Act. Remember, I always laugh at that because it's not a Inflation Reduction Act. The bill, H.R. 9092, known as the Family and Small Business Taxpayer Protection Act, consists of just one sentence that provides that certain elements of the funding granted the IRS by the Inflation Reduction Act are rescinded. Isn't that's kind of refreshing, a law, a bill that just comes right to the point and says it with a few words. It makes sense. We have these 7,000-page bills that nobody reads, that nobody even knows what's in it. Please note that the Taxpayer Protection Act does not seek to rescind the entire $80 billion appropriation. The elements to be cut include $45.6 billion specifically intended for tax law enforcement and $25.3 billion for the support of law enforcement activities. The Taxpayer Protection Act would leave in place the funding targeted at taxpayer services, including pre-filing assistance and education, filing and account services, taxpayer advocacy services, and other related services. The level of funding pointed at these programs, $3.18 billion of the $80 billion, was earmarked for taxpayer services and education. Betrays the thinking of much of the Washington's elite. Barely 4% of the windfall the IRS is to receive will directly help taxpayers comply with the law, compared with 96% that is intended to be used for, one way or another, enforcement. I keep telling people this. They think I'm just crazy. But it certainly is correct. This is why I challenge the current nominee for IRS Commissioner, Danny Werfel. Remember, he's the guy that's been nominated by Biden, to rebuild the IRS's pre-filing education programs, along with its outreach functions to citizens and private sector tax professionals. Of all the government agencies in the United States, only the IRS touches every citizen, regardless of his age or his social, economic, or cultural background. This is why outreach and education must be a major priority for this agency and not just an afterthought. The question now, I don't know why this isn't working. The question now on everybody's mind is, what's next for the IRS? What's next for the IRS in light of the Taxpayer Protection Act's funding cut? Given the circumstances in Washington, I believe the act is merely symbolic. While it passed the Republican-controlled House, it will not pass the Senate, and thus it will never find its way to the White House to be signed by President Biden. The IRS will still get the money, and my challenge to the new commissioner remains the same. Will you meaningfully work to assist taxpayers in complying with the law that is so voluminous that it cannot be read and so incoherent that it cannot be understood? Or will you simply turn up the heat on those hapless taxpayers who find themselves unable to comply? Very good article. I have one more. I'm not going to be able to read it all because this goes on, but this is a very interesting. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit. This is a very interesting because apocalypse. IRS says you still need to pay taxes. The IRS has a contingency plans in place to collect taxes even after a catastrophic apocalypse. However, that doesn't mean they're prepared for everything. And it just goes on that there actually are plans that the government puts forward if there's apocalypse to collect your taxes. I gotta say, they weren't very good at the pandemic. So I think if the apocalypse, I don't think they'd be very good there. I don't care how much planning they do. I don't think it won't really work. So I just think it's kind of a funny thing. I have one more, just one more page, and that's this page. How every business owner can solve IRS problems forever. And it's not what you think. So this is on fightbacknow.com. This is my site. And I have a IRS workshop. So if you have IRS problems, or one of your problems might be that you pay too much taxes. If you're interested in taxes, a workshop, I have a tax workshop coming up February 16th, and you can go there and sign up at fightbacknow.com. Go to fightbacknow.com and you can sign up for the free workshop. It's going to be an online workshop, and I'm going to talk about different issues. Maybe let me go review these with you. 3 things I'm going to ask. Secret number 1, why the tax resolution companies only offer temporary solutions. Secret number 2, how to make bookkeeping automatic without accounting or technical skills. Because I got to tell you, record keeping is the key. Now, that's one key. The real key is compliance. That's the answer on how to solve IRS problems. The third one is how to pay the IRS what you can and not what you owe. So many people say, well, I don't even want to get in there because I can't pay what I owe. Well, sometimes you don't have to pay what you owe, right? So these are the things that are going to be on. So go to fightbacknow.com, sign up. It's free. Don't cost nothing. I'll give some offers on there too. But it doesn't cost nothing. So go to fightbacknow.com. Sign up for the free class. Remember, I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. I need your help. I got to get this. I'm trying to get this information out. I need you to help me. So like and subscribe. Share. Tell others. If you're in the tax business, in any capacity, share it with your friends. They want to know this stuff. I follow the IRS like nobody else does, and you'll want to. And if you are at all interested in the IRS, or if you owe the IRS money or anything like that, you should follow this show so you can keep up on the IRS and what's going on with the IRS. Again, every news story really involves the IRS. How do they get the money and how do they spend it? That's really how it works. And if you do have IRS problems and you don't know what to do, here's what you should do. Go to freeirsbook.com. Get my free book. Deal with your IRS problem today. Go to freeirsbook.com. Freeirsbook.com. I will ask you to pay for I will pay for the publishing, and I will ask you to pay for the shipping and handling. Again, it's under $10. So go to freeirsbook.com. Get your free copy. I think I've been mentioning lately. If you go today and get the book, I will throw in the audio book for free. Not only the audio book, but also it's going to have a PDF version of the book and a Word version of the book, and also a chapter by chapter review from me, Attorney Stephen Lee, who wrote the book. So go there and get your free copy, freeirsbook.com. So thanks so much for joining us here today. I appreciate it. We won't be here tomorrow, but we'll be returning on Monday, and I hope you're there with us. So thanks again. God bless you. And we are, one more thing. We are out.